Previously, we looked at the bank account analogy or the mass balance principle as applied to cholesterol accumulation in our body, and we realized that to have a healthy cholesterol level in our body, we need to have a good balance between the in and the out. And when our out is significantly less than an in, we have an accumulation. In bone health, however, we're looking at deficits, and that's how bones get porous over time. And the main concern here is osteoporosis, especially with postmenopausal women. They're always at higher risk of facing osteoporosis issues. Now, our bones provide much needed structural support for our body, and they grow to whatever sizes they are because of the activities of various living cells in our body. And we know that as we reach adulthood, they remain relatively constant in size and they're larger than a child's bones. So if we were to look at the mass balance, we would see that there will be an input and there would be an output from our bones. So in our bones, we have the osteoblast cells and the osteoclast cells. Osteoblast cells create new bone mineral, while osteoclast cells will break down old bone mineral and turn it back into soluble calcium so that it can go back into our blood and we can process and dispose of it. So to maintain that equilibrium bone size, we would need this osteoblast activity to equal the osteoclast activity. In women, they have estrogen as a hormone that is heavily involved in many of their reproductive functions. And we can see that as they reach the stage of menopause, the estrogen levels in their blood will decrease. This molecule here is estradiol, which is an important component of estrogen. Unfortunately, estrogen is a major regulator of the inflammatory signaling mechanisms in the body, including the most commonly known nuclear factor, kappa B. As a woman reaches menopausal age, her estrogen levels will decline, and therefore her ability to regulate the inflammatory signaling mechanisms will also decline. Meaning that those inflammatory signaling mechanisms in her body will become more dysregulated, and as such, if the inflammatory signals become more intensified, osteoclast activity increases while osteoblast activity remains relatively constant and unaffected. Meaning that when this osteoclast activity increases and this remains constant, we would see that old bone mineral will be removed at a greater rate than new bone mineral being formed. And as long as we are removing things faster than we are creating, would we not see a decline in the bone density over time? As a parallel, if we were to look at our wallets and our bank accounts, wouldn't our wallets get thinner if we spend more money than we were earning? We would see that they would become thinner, or we would see our bank accounts depleting over time. So unfortunately, inflammation dysregulation is a problem that tends to become more pronounced in older people, and one common term for it is known as inflammaging. So it's not just women who will face the problem of osteoporosis, but men are also not immune to osteoporosis. It's just dependent on how well we can regulate our inflammatory signaling mechanisms as we grow older. So the question being, does an increased calcium intake alone help to prevent osteoporosis? And we would know that the answer is, of course, not. Because what we need to do is to deal with this whole inflammation dysregulation problem, and consuming calcium will not help with that inflammation, but we might end up seeing issues such as the formation of calcium stones in the body, which also isn't that great for us. So the key to looking at osteoporosis is to reduce the osteoclast activity that is occurring in our bones, and that would mean that we would have to address this dysregulated inflammatory signaling problem. And especially in women with menopause, the whole problem being that the estrogen levels are falling, so we need something to actually compensate for that decrease in estrogen, because we cannot just go against the laws of nature and try to continue maintaining a similar amount of estrogen in the body. And this dysregulated inflammatory signaling problem can also be extended to a similar analysis with our joints and osteoarthritis. But we will leave that as another video for another time. Stay tuned. So do feel free to scan this QR code to see what nutrients can help support healthy bones in our diet. It's not just calcium, but there will be quite a few other things that can be considered as well. Secondly, do feel free to subscribe to my channel to stay up to date with the latest news, especially with this upcoming osteoarthritis video if you are interested in knowing more. Thank you and have a nice day.